Great, so we can get started. Okay, great. So I'm gonna go through the whole spiel. So this is the Friday, October 20th meeting of the Nantucket Historical Commission. As a preliminary matter, this is Rita Carr, Vice Chair. Angus Cloud can't join us today. Hope he's having a great time in Montana. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. So Clement, aye. George Butterworth,
Aye.
Abby DeMolina,
Aye.
Tom Montgomery,
Aye.
and Mickey Rowland.
Aye.
All right, and staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Polly Backus.
Present.
Great, and then I don't think we have any specific anticipated speakers on the agenda, but joining us from the public, we have Mary Bergman and Hillary Rayport. Great. So good morning. This is the open meeting of the Nantucket Historical Commission being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Act of 2023. Ensuring public access is not for public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, Nantucket Historical Commission is convening via video conference via Zoom app as listed on the town's website and identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are, well, not all attendees, but some are participating via video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Okay, so we are now turning to the first item of the agenda. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Okay, so first thing on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment today? Okay, hearing none. We have commissioners' comments. Would any of the commissioners like to make a comment today? Great. And then we have a staff update. So Holly, do you have an update for us on anything not listed on the agenda?
Yes, so the only other thing is, which I didn't do anything for, but this weekend is the memorial of John McLaughlin, former longtime town volunteer, I think is a good thing to say about him, and recent HDC Commissioner Emeritus, who passed away in July. And I know the family has invited the entire pretty much town community up to the VFW tomorrow between 1 and 5, and they're going to be giving him military honors at 3. So
Great, thank you. So the next up is discussion of demo delay policies and potential improvements. So this was a carryover from last month's meeting. We talked about wanting to review the current, zoning bylaw in detail as it pertains to demolitions and come up with some specific recommendations. So I hope everyone has had a chance to look at the bylaw in more detail and would like to open up things among the commissioners for any potential discussions. I reached out, the bylaw, of course, as it's written, is the goals are for, allowing this time period for housing, for these buildings of residential value. So to discourage demolition and to minimize the quantity of demolition debris ending up in the landfill. So it doesn't, strictly mention historic preservation, and of course, and it functions more of that, sort of delay for housing purposes, which obviously is something, very needed here and important. I reached out to Ann Kisba of Housing Nantucket and said, is the fact that as written, it's a 60-day, you need to be able to move the structure within 60 days is how it's written for the public notice. I said, does that present, you know, an obstacle sometimes is if people are trying to get together at permitting or they're trying to, you know, secure all their financing. She said, yes, she thought, you know, increasing that 60 days to, she said 90 or 120 would be, you know, help the process. There's also the interested parties shall have 30 days to respond in writing to the public notice. If, you know, we wanted to look at increasing that time period for a move from 60 days to something longer you know, I think increasing that 30-day period would also make sense. Did any other commissioners have thoughts on, you know, specifics within the?
I just had a thought, not specifically changing. I think the couple of things you brought up are worthy, like, you know, we know, especially I think depending on the timing, like if it's something in the summer, like we know house moves are a lot more complicated, like depending on the season of the year, things like that. So I think being a little more mindful of like, you know, having some flexibility there, I think makes sense. I also thought that it might make sense if we did like a working session, that we did it as part of this CLG. In that way, we could have the HDC members and the NHC members together. And I know we had kind of informally talked about it during our CLG meeting, but maybe if we could see that see if, and Holly, I don't know if it's up to us or working with them, but maybe doing like an active working session with them and kind of like working through stuff together might be a good idea, so that you know, everybody's in the same room, we can all be on like the same page together. So that was just something I thought about. We'd obviously have to figure out timing and things like that, but I think that might make sense in that way. If, you know, everybody's there together, we can kind of talk through the things and figure out what will work. So that was just my comment.
Holly, did you have any thoughts from after last month or?
Just that, I mean, to Abby's point on having the CLG, that would definitely make sense. I just don't know from a timing standpoint on when they would be available. This would be something that probably facilitated through the HGC's OFC, Organizational Focus Committee. But I obviously do think that they there's a need for, I think, across the board, even from the town's perspective, from sustainability perspective, to look at how this bylaw could be beefed up. I think too, it's also important to note that looking at facts and statistics and what other, as much as I always say that Nantucket is unique, we don't follow 40C, and that's the reason why our demo delayed bylaw doesn't follow what other communities have. I think that needs to be understood across the board, and I think out there in the public. Because there's this perception that we would follow. No, we wouldn't, because of the utmost protection with the HDC. With that said, it would be nice to have some research done on what our fellow 40 or our special act, I should say, in Cambridge, and see what they do. And be able to, are we comparing apples and oranges? So we need to do some studying and research, and maybe if it's not a full CLG meeting between the two commissions, it could be something through, maybe we have a committee from this commission that meets with the Organizational Focus Committee of the HDC. Again, that's a committee within the committee, and meet together. That might be more tangible. And, you know, again, that would be my thing. I do also want to mention too, that if this is something that we want to move forward, as a CLG, then it does still need to go through the planning board. It is something that would have to go for a recommendation. I have in the meantime brought it up to planning staff, I should say, and the planning director, just so they're aware of this is something that we're, you know, talking about. So.
Great. Did they have any reaction? Either way or?
It really wasn't. It was just ask me if there's anything that we're, you know, anything I and commission's thinking about adding to town meeting.
Okay.
So we don't think that they would necessarily have a big objection to a longer delay period?
I can't really answer that.
Could I comment?
I think Mary Bergman, Nantucket Preservation Trust. Holly, can you scroll up to the whereas clauses.
Sorry, I went too far. Going too far. Hold on, let me move the people. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys. Gotta move you guys over here.
No,
I hear that a lot at HTC. Move the people.
people.
The statement of purpose?
Yeah.
Or-
So it's up.
Yeah, the,
Yeah, right there.
Right, so the statements of purpose relating for this bylaw in particular don't refer to historic preservation at all. And I think that's, it's kind of a double-edged sword. The reason, of course, for that, as Holly indicated, is the HTC has the utmost authority right now to deny any demolition of a historic structure. And the creation of this bylaw, which I think would be worth looking at. Who introduced this bylaw
I
originally?
think it was Andrew.
Okay.
Yeah.
And going back and sort of seeing like, what was the climate like when this was introduced? What were the recommendations then? How did people vote at town meeting then? What kind of went on? Those who remember might be able to tell us, but I guess the point I bring up, because the two issues are to minimize the quality of demolition debris ending up in the landfill and to create a incentive for reuse of residential structures. So those are two issues of sustainability and affordable housing. And I think getting those two entities in the town together to support this bylaw change is really going to matter, because I think if the thing that I worry that if this committee and the HDC gets focused on this without that outside impact,
Yeah.
somebody will say, but this doesn't have to do with historic structures. And the HCC could just deny any demolition now.
Mhm.
So getting the buy-in, and this is something I've talked to Holly about from, talking with Vince, and I know Vince wanted to join us, sustainability programs manager, but he can't. And other folks like that, I think, to help steward the changes in this bylaw is really important.
I think that's a really good point. I think the more people we kind of get in support and, on board and participating in the process, is the more people will feel like it's inclusive and we're listening to all the voices. And obviously there will have to be compromises in places where we'll have to like work through stuff. But I do think it's a really good point, Mary, that like we should definitely kind of make sure that we talk to these people and they feel like they're included in the process. So
Yeah, I
do
used
agree.
to think it was, as some of you may know, in 2019, I introduced a demolition delay bylaw for a period of.
Yeah.
But that did not, it was defeated because I had been talking with the HCC. It was basically it was a general bylaw that would more follow like 40C, and since we didn't have a 40C special or 40C LHD, it was creating a lot of cause for confusion. Cape Cod Times did endorse it, though they don't do that anymore, but they did. The conversation I had with folks at the time, like Vice Chair Stephen Welch, was that the HDC was going to meet, and we would kind of make a plan we talk more about demolitions. And then we would pull it on the town meeting floor and kind of get up and explain what that plan was. But as you know, then that was the first town meeting that we had during the pandemic. So pretty much anything that was not essential was just put on to be voted in a block. And since that had a negative recommendation from the finance committee, it was defeated.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that history there. But I do think, and things changed within the agency as well. Like the real estate boom, I think, really caused a lot of issues. But anyway, it seems like such a big problem, and the more you look at this legislation, it's just like tiny little tweaks would really go a long
Yeah,
way.
there's a good foundation, I think, that was created for this, but how can we make it so it's more? My take on it is the fact that we saw during the pandemic structures that were built in the 90s,
Yeah,
perfectly
Yes.
fine houses, and here we have a housing issue on one end, and we have a National Historic Landmark, and the HDC really and truly, well, it's non-contributing, so there you go, but
yeah,
but they-
that's the end of their jurisdiction.
that is at
But
the
I
end of
know
their
they feel
jurisdiction.
bad
They
about
do, and that's why you're seeing a lot of the commissioners say, well, if you can salvage it, and again, this
So
is
that's
a
what I would
different
also
component.
propose to think about, is be introducing a definition for deconstruction within the town code, and then creating, looking at this bylaw to, right now, the only alternative to demolition is move off.
Mhm.
And could deconstruction be an alternative to demolition? I think it's an opportunity to define what a demolition is. Is that 25% of the structure, is it 50%, is it raising the building?
And I do think, and I wanna publicly thank NPT, because when you brought, May from Savannah, and the fact that she reiterated the history
Mm.
of demolition, and that it's only new, it's only something that happened since World War II. It was something that really and truly was not the way we did things, and that's why we historically, not just because we're so secluded away from the coast and from added necessities, we reuse structure in buildings, but they did that even in the mainland. It really wasn't until the industrialization of our infrastructure, our state infrastructure system, highway system, and really and truly demolition is only about 80 years old. And putting that in perspective too, I think also would be helpful, because I bet you there's a lot of people that wouldn't really know that. And so I think May for bringing that back out into the open. And it was great to have her here.
Do you think that Andrew, is he like fully off the island now, or
I mean, he's here as a consultant.
I'm just wondering to what extent would he,
I could find out. Yep.
have any advice for, just again, what
Yep.
happened when this was introduced and.
Yep.
Can I ask, what the definition is of deconstruction?
Well, that would be, essentially taking a building apart so that the materials can be reused.
Which is basically how they moved houses in the old
Yeah,
days, because they
right.
couldn't move them intact.
Correct, yeah, but to your point, there are whether that's taking, like each piece out, inventory, is it taking every single brick, is it taking, flat packing the house, taking a wall down, so that it could be re-erected somewhere else.
Or just taking the windows, or just taking the fireplace,
Yeah,
but taking it apart so it could be reused, not. I saw a house in, Codfish Park be demolished. I mean, it was so sad. And, there's this big backhoe that just goes smash, and the whole thing just falls apart.
I do know some of my friends in construction have salvaged the interior of kitchens. They've been told to demolish a kitchen that was put in 15 years ago, and
And
they
they
just
say,
take it out and put it in their house.
I think it's great. I mean, I know that they do, a lot of contractors say, come on over, guys, take whatever you want, and that's great.
And that's part of it, I think. I'm doing it things outside my room, so just learning and listening. But I think one of the satisfactions to see something wood and valuable materials that can be reusable for cabinets and mantles. When you see them pieced together and structured, and you see these piles that could just be taken again and made into something else, it's such a satisfying feeling viscerally. It's viscerally satisfying, as opposed to that what it emotes when you see something being smashed. So it's common sense kind of approach to thinking.
And then the dumpsters come around and they just put it on, off it goes to the land.
And a lot of those materials that you see the wood when it was built is so much more valuable, stronger, sturdier, better quality than a lot of the wood that you see being used new today, which goes to the point where even if it's just strips of wood, that particular type of wood is a better value.
There was another thing, they were giving it to a sculptor who was making all those great whales sculptures and stuff. I mean, at least it's reused. It's not, its original purpose.
I see Tom has his hand up.
Yeah, it might be a technical thing, but I think there's a big difference between demolition and dismantling.
Okay, there.
When you dismantle something, I wish they'd done that up in Woodbury Lane with a house that got burned that was next to the one that blew up. I used to caretake that house, and that was one of the most beautiful houses inside. They had so much stuff in there that could have been dismantled rather than just bulldozed down. Cherry floors, raised paneling, and stairs and everything else. And I know they were worried about, the thing falling down and, hurting somebody, but I don't know. Anyway, I think there's a difference between dismantling and demolition.
Sure is.
Is dismantling a better word to use than deconstruction?
No,
No, deconstruction is
that's the
industry.
industry term.
Industry
yeah.
term,
yeah.
But you to dismantle.
Well,
and-
demolition means demolish.
Yeah,
know,
right,
And dismantling means taking apart.
taking it apart.
Which is what deconstruction is good, right?
Demolition is new phenomenon, 8 years, so.
And I don't know, and if you, to learn, if anyone wants more information about the differences, there is, I don't know if the conflict of interest for me to say, MPT, we brought both Stephanie Phillips in June and then May Boley of Repurpose Savannah to the island. Their lectures are available to watch on YouTube, and May's was just last month and it was really great.
I think it's okay as long as it's educational information, so you're just putting it out there, you can go to the NPT site and find them, but they did have some good speakers talking about it.
One last thing on deconstruction and just again, I think we all saw that house at the end of Sheep Pond Road, the current, I posted an image of, and to say that it took an hour for the structure to be demolished, and certainly that's a separate situation in which it's, been undercut, and it's a hazard to have a structure like that there. And probably would be exempt from any delay, but
Right.
we do know that properties, I suppose it would also make sense to involve like the Coastal Resilience Committee in any sort of discussions about this, because removing structures from the waterfront is something there. Where?
Hillary?
Oh, thanks very much, Rita. I think there's one thing that could be changed in the near term to make this current bylaw more effective. Because I think there's a lot of study that's required to, by the groups that you guys are talking about, to make big changes, like lengthening the time, etc. But one thing that could change in the near term that I think would fulfill the objective of the current bylaw is a change. Holly, or whoever is controlling the screen, could you scroll down to the process? The bylaw says how you go about fulfilling the demolition delay. I think it's F. Procedure. So you have to make a request to the building commissioner or local inspector by letter, email, and then you wait. Can you just scroll down? Then you wait to see what they say, and they decide if it's 30 or 60 days. And then you have to have a public notice. And you advertise it, and then you prove to the building inspector that you fulfilled the notice, and then you fulfilled your requirement for the demolition delay. And I think the thing that's out of alignment with this bylaw that really makes it less effective than it will be is that you can start advertising and fulfilling your demolition delay before the building has even been approved to be demolished. And, this reminds me of the change, Holly, that you had to make with curb cuts, because remember how the DPW was like they felt they were out of alignment with the permitting process of the HDC. And this is also out of alignment with the permitting process of the HDC. So a small, really administrative change. I mean, I know there would be people who would not appreciate this change because it actually does mean that they start to experience a demolition delay. But the point of the bylaw is to cause them to experience a demolition delay. So if you required that they present the building inspector not just with the advertisement, but also with that they have to first present a certified copy of the certificate of appropriateness for demolition, and then the advertisement placed after that date, then you would actually really have a demolition delay of 60 days. And that might actually make a difference to some salvage and move situations. And I think it might be something that could be done soon, because we are seeing and can demonstrate some lack of salvage because of this misalignment. And I just wondered what people thought about that, or if you understood what I was talking about, because I can I hope I was clear.
Rita,
Oh, yeah.
it's Mickey. I think what Hillary's saying is really important. I think that we do need to have that, the ability to have the review of the HDC prior to getting the notice, like in the paper and to the building commissioner. I think in tandem with that, I think we need to get the HDC to also allow more time during that process. Because it takes a while to research what's the history of a building and the value of it, how old it is. And the HDC process can sometimes go fairly quickly, and we may not have enough time to present a good argument against demolition. So I think Hillary's got a very good point, but I think we need to also deal with the HDC issue at the same time. Thanks.
No, it seems to me that when we started talking about this, and we're talking about focus groups and getting our commission and HTC all together, even that could take, we know how long that takes. That takes forever. So if there's anything that can be done, as Hillary said, right now to clean this up a little bit, that would be great.
I would worry though, we don't want to keep going back to this and changing it multiple times, because Holly, didn't you say it's somewhat complicated to change this? So I would think that
This is a general bylaw, so it would still have to go through town meeting, but it wouldn't require like anything to the special act.
so I mean, but I would just think from a practical standpoint, I mean, we should do it as soon as we can, but if we want to do it for town meeting, like, we just need to make sure though, like, I just don't know if we want to like do some changes, then do more changes. Like, I don't know if there's a lot of appetite for like us going back multiple times rather than trying to like get it right. And so when we do it, everybody, because what would be terrible is, let's say we try to put some changes, people don't like it, they rally against it, and then nothing gets done. And then you're also kind of like, people will not be willing to even further consider other changes. So I guess I don't
think that's what was being suggested. It sounded like it was clarifying the process that's already outlined in the bylaw. So the question is,
yeah, I
how
guess
does that happen? How does
Yeah.
that happen? Do you ask, does somebody have to ask town council for an opinion on like, how is this bylaw supposed to be followed, and are we following it right? Is it the planning director?
Or is it just more making it clearer to understand, this happens first, this happens second?
Yeah.
But like, we read the bylaw, we understand that. I think people are circumventing it, not because it's not clear, or because no one's.
Well, yeah, because if there's no accountability, then it doesn't, so that's, I guess then maybe that is the question, is like, can we, because I would agree, if we can clarify it without going to town meeting, I think that makes a lot more sense, because I just feel like that's a large, and you don't necessarily want to legislate everything through town meeting either. So if it's more like, if we could get legal opinion, that's like, yeah, you know what, I mean, because it sounds common sense, like, you shouldn't be able to, if you haven't gotten approval, why should you be able to advertise? Okay, like, anyone who seems common sense is like, yeah, that makes sense. But so if we just were able to get clarification there, I think that would definitely go a long way, to your point, Mary, if it's not like having to change it.
Might be some
Holly,
mediation.
could Holly brief everybody on how she made the change for the curb cut reason? Because I think that was a change that went to the
meeting. Yeah.
through town meeting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was actually something I brought up.
Yeah.
Spoke to the planning director. He agreed to it, that it made sense to do that. It was causing issues, especially for the HDC. And so it goes, staff, we propose the changes. It goes on the list of changes that staff are working on, to the planning board. And again, if anybody's not familiar with the town meeting warrant process, there's an actual Excel spreadsheet on the town's website that the select board adopts certain times of the year that lays out the entire process from point A to point Z. And that is where all those, we have to make sure things are set in place. So again, this is the time frame where staff as well as committees, commissions, boards, what have you, are going through and seeing what type of proposals would be for town meeting. And I did, obviously bring this up. So, but yes, it would warrant a further discussion. But that one, it was simple enough. It was basically making it so there's already a bylaw in place, the time under chapter 139-20.1 for driveway and curb cuts, and that they are required to obviously get what I, as a planner, would call it an encroachment permit from DPW. If you're changing a driveway or creating a new one of the bylaw, you have to have an apron. Apron is a change of material, therefore a COA from the HDC is required. And really and truly, it's geared towards more of the core historic districts, the 255 districts, versus the entire island. But I will tell you this: it's picked momentum up. There were people who are actually going, "Hey, I should go to HDC, even if I'm in Mid-Island, get a COA on my material in my driveway before I go." It's not technically a requirement under the bylaw, but I encourage it. And obviously that's helpful. Would I personally like to see a change for the entire island? Yes, but baby steps. And obviously the core historic district is of town and Sconset is important. So yes, it would have to go through that process. And as I know I've said to this commission before, having stuff that is supported by town staff has kind of better, but on the flip side, to Mary's point about that, there's interest from other groups and organizations, especially within the town. As a town staff, I am part of a internal sustainability group along with Vince and a plethora of other staff members. Obviously demolition and deconstruction is a big component brought up on how we want to look at it. This bylaw, obviously, from a preservation perspective, because again, this demo delay does not fit the mold of preservation like other historic districts in the Commonwealth under Chapter 40C. We have the special act. They have the utmost special authority to be able to say no. But that doesn't always happen. So, and on the flip side, our demo delay, unlike other ones in the Commonwealth, is more for the sustainability and the I guess reuse of historic or of any structure. It doesn't matter if it's historic or not. So as staff to the HGC and seeing structures that are non-contributing, that is a no-brainer. But from a sustainability perspective, let's get it off the head, if you will, of the historic district and put it into a certain process. Is looking at this from there's baby steps. I think there's like anything else in law and all that. There's those low hanging fruit aspects of changes that we can do, very simple. Then there's also things that we may want to look at to say, okay, well, we also want to include the sustainability perspective. So to your point, Abby, about what could be done quicker versus, yes. And I think in tweaking it for those particular timeframes would be something that I would want to introduce sooner rather than later. But, I say that, and no disrespect to anybody sitting here, but, I do work for the town and I have to make sure that, what I spend my time on is something that the town and my director is okay with. So I do support, obviously, taking the demo delay bylaw and assisting with those issues that we've seen that are raised. And we know what the effort that you did, Mary, wasn't necessarily the right path.
No.
But a lot of the work that you did is going to obviously help facilitate.
That's why I bring up the sustainability aspect, just knowing how your time is divided up, and even though like we know this is important to historic preservation, the flip side to that is I feel like we have two tracks here. We have the non-historic buildings that this bylaw deals with, which I feel like Vince is very interested in this. We've had conversations, we'll talk to him more about it. And then looking at what is already existing for the Historic District Committee, like Appendix C of buildings we have it in mind, and thinking about, okay, if you can take things off of their plate relating to newer structures, is there more time that can be spent on review of this, you know, things that are truly historic, which I feel falls more under what you're really tasked to do, so.
Yep.
That's exciting, I think.
It is, absolutely. Don't think I'm not excited. I am. So I
Alright,
guess my biggest thing would be for this commission, to provide your input on what you'd like, specifically, what you'd like to see changed in the bylaw. So
Mhm.
if folks haven't done that already, I encourage you to take a look at the bylaw a little bit more, and even email me, send me your, you know, what you think, where those tweaks could be done. And again, think of this as those low hanging fruit, tangible things that we can do now, and maybe things down where we're bringing the sustainability perspective down the road. Those are the things that I have been bringing to our sustainability internal group about how we can, you know, take that hanging aspect over the HDC, you know, okay, you meet the criteria, it's non-contributing structure, okay, this is the path you follow. And getting more into what Verna and her group with Remain is really, you know, you guys are really wanting to have this whole salvage component. So again, I think that would be a whole different ballgame, but again, it would give that momentum in that direction. Exactly. Yeah. And again, I think that's the baby steps that we need to plan, and plan it appropriately. But I think one thing that's helpful is that what we're looking at right now is our general bylaw. We're you know, we're looking in the zoning bylaw, we're looking, we're not looking at our special act.
Okay, great. So in terms of next steps, you know, anyone who hasn't can get back to you probably with specifics for things we'd like to see changed. And then,
Yep.
you know, should we look to schedule a meeting, you know, a joint meeting of the CLG, or should we just, you know?
I honestly think, because, you know, we're also in our independent review, and that's top priority. And we're gonna be, you know, that's gonna be wrapping up at the end of the year. Yes, at least, you know, for the contract that they have. So I would say, and understanding that, the OFC of the HGC is probably not gonna be meeting for a while.
Okay.
I would definitely say that like the springtime would be more appropriate for a CLG.
Okay.
But in the meantime, again, if we're wanting something to tackle that's low lying fruit, time frame, try to fix what the basis of this one is already, and plan for future changes from a sustainability perspective, that's, you know, and I think maybe at that point, it would be a good idea for the CLG. And this can always be something that, you know, I bring up to the HDC and like, hey, that, you know, they obviously, you've heard them all say that they want people to salvage.
Yeah.
They don't like that concept. And it's really, you know, whether it's a contributing structure built in the 60s, I think is where they're more, you know, murky in the mid-century, if you will. And up to the end of our period of significance is where they're really having, oh my God, you know, that this is wasteful. And encouraging that reuse. So yeah, no, I think there's support on that. And if this is something that's going to be coming from staff's perspective, then, and going through the proper channels with my director, then yeah, that would be something that I could bring back to both commissions and say, this is what we're working at. Because again, it has to vet through the whole process. So,
Great. So for those smaller changes along process and how this is implemented and potentially incorporating the HTC COA into that process, as well as maybe a slight lengthening of that delay period.
That would be low lying fruit.
yeah, I mean, again, and that type of stuff, I encourage, you know, there needs to be some more research, looking into how we compare to other jurisdictions in the Commonwealth, how we compare to our fellow special act in Boston, and, you know, even down to how many applications. I mean, I could even bounce into the next thing about solar. You know, I think this historic district approves more solar than people think. So again, yeah, you guys know they're busy. So yes, please send me whatever you, or your suggestions are, and obviously I'm gonna be taking those into consideration.
Okay, Fantastic. So we will do that, and I can research certainly Beacon Hill and the special act there and see what they have, and I'll
In the
distribute that
meantime,
amongst the.
we could ask to try and get the CLG for the spring.
Yeah, I think that would probably be good. And yeah, it'd be really
And
good.
that way we can talk through like the bigger stuff. and
I
stuff.
thought we'd asked for that.
Well, we have,
I
the
know.
problem is they were doing the review and they were kind of like, they
No,
didn't
I-
wanna meet
yeah,
until the review, so.
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
keep asking. I
Yeah,
just don't.
yeah, oh, no, yeah.
Uh,
Persistence, Clement,
Yeah.
persistence, we'll just keep asking till we get it.
So our,
Sure.
okay.
So the next thing,
Yeah, next thing on the agenda is Senate Bill number 1289.
No.
I hope in the packet we had the text of the bill as well as a link to a committee discussion that was held in late September that I think was pretty illuminating, as well as a letter from the Old Kings Highway Regional Historic District Commission in response to the bill. So of course, pretty wide reaching, and it's only section 8 of the bill that pertains to Nantucket because of our special act. The first 7 sections all pertain to chapter 40C, and then sections 9 through 11 are all focused on the Old Kings Highway Regional Historic District, but
yeah.
Hollywood is,
So I guess everybody remembers a couple years ago, we had a proposed town meeting warrant article that would amend our special act. That was a citizens warrant article to require the HDC to have solar throughout the entire island outside the OHDs. And of course, that was shot down. The HDC have been working on with a work group, and other people from basically the public. I know that they haven't been meeting for a while, but I think it's important to note that circumventing the special act is very concerning, very, very concerning. And as I tell a lot of people, and I may have said it at the floor of town meeting, that you don't amend the Constitution, you do a Bill of Rights, you give an amendment to the Bill of Rights. Same concept when it comes to our special act and design guidelines. So looking at our design guidelines, a lot of people didn't realize that their solar design guidelines that Nantucket created through Sustainable Nantucket in 2009 is actually utilized as and thank you to the scientists of concerned scientists brought this to our attention a couple years ago, is that our design guidelines for solar sustainability and well, actually sustainable preservation is how it's worded, is actually used as a case study within the guidance for historic districts, which is pretty big. So basically Nantucket's guidance for solar is referenced for guides for other historic districts. I can't, it was just amazing to see that. So bring it to this proposed bill. And now our representatives who have not communicated with town, that have not communicated with the commission, are proposing a change which would circumvent our special act and requiring solar, quote, outside the old historic districts of town and Sconset, the Historic District Commission shall allow for the visible integration of solar panels and renewable energy systems. Which, if you look back, where's the statistics that they applied for this? Because we have a fundamentally awesome track record of approving solar within the historic district. And you probably, I would assume most people here realize that the Historic District Commission works with folks. They'd rather not deny somebody. They only have denied at the utmost, this is actually against this criteria, this criteria. They even allow solar, not necessarily on a black asphalt roof, and they've allowed it on wood if it's not visible or if it's, obliquely visible. So they're pretty good with their guidance, and they follow it really, really well. So for this bill to come through and not have any communication is crazy. I have requested on behalf of the HDC, after thank you, Mary, for really bringing it to my attention and Lauren's attention and my Lauren Sinatra as energy coordinator. She might sit on the renewable energy perspective, but her and I sit on a lot of stuff together and have the same mindset of protection of our National Historic Landmark. And she's of concern as well, because she knows the track record that the HDC has, because she assists people to get their rebates when they get their solar. So I am waiting back to hear from town administration, from town council. I have requested town council's opinion through the proper channels. I have in the meantime brought it to our expert council's attention, who you all probably know, CHP, Cultural Heritage Partners, also represents the town through our Section 106 review processes for our unprecedented wind farms that are being built off the coast and going through their respective development processes for different developments. And, you know, I respect our expert council, obviously knowing the laws, and they agree with me. When I sent it to Will, he's like, yes, you were absolutely positively correct. This is proposed to undermine the special act. And so he was also adamant on getting town council's opinion, because town council, again, at the end of the day, is more focused on our local Massachusetts laws. So there have been a communication from town administration to Senator Sears, I think, office. And I'm just waiting back to coordinate with that. I think it's going to be an internal staff discussion. And I'm hopeful that I'll have maybe Lauren with me on that conversation. But I wanted to bring this up to the commission's attention, because obviously anything that affects our special act affects this Preservation Commission, especially a part of the CLG. So and if you haven't already or are encouraged to, please, you know, send comments to Senator Sears' attention and let him know. I can tell you, if you read this, and then what else we have in the packet from Kings Highway, Old Kings Highway in Barnstable, they're furious as well. You know, they might not have a special act, but they obviously, you know, again, are adamant about the facts and their statistics and what they've actually approved and what they reasonably allow.
Do we know the timing of the bill?
Apparently,
It's only had one committee
Mhm.
hearing. so
But it
far,
was-
right?
but it was
introduced in
only-
February
yeah.
23, I think.
yep,
I guess I thought OKH was a special act district because it was definitely outside of 40C, and
Is it?
was
Okay.
1973 it was established.
Yeah.
okay.
It's
You guys
it's
know.
huge.
It is,
and-
absolutely.
and runs through multiple towns, and I think that's
Well, on that note, I'm curious if our colleague, Sarah, at Cape Cod Commission, if she was notified or had any communication.
yeah. I talked with Sarah yesterday,
Okay.
and she said that a similar bill was introduced in the state legislature about 5 years ago. That was guided at least partly by some student research that had incorrect information about historic district legislation, chapter 40C versus OKH. It doesn't sound like any of the legislation was drafted in conversation. Like, I don't think the commission over there was
Consulted on.
consulted. One of the things that's concerning about this bill, if you look at the OKH, is basically removing any power that OKH has to enforce. There, it's a misdemeanor over there if you,
That's great.
yeah, if you don't follow what the HDC says. So I think that's, I've been thinking about this a lot. Because when I was in Salem, I spoke with a couple of folks from other historic districts, and I had heard that it was very difficult to get things like mini splits and heat pumps approved in other towns because of the visibility issues there. So it is the solar PV systems, but it's also these other energy. And I think that is the trouble. There are some districts in Massachusetts that are working harder, I think, to integrate these renewable energy systems into their guidelines. I think Nantucket is one of them. We worked with WPI, Lauren and Holly and I had a WPI team 2 years ago.
Yep.
To look at solar, to look at the guidelines. You know, we think Salem has some really great guidelines.
Mhm.
There are another deeply historic town that is also dealing with, you know, flooding and inundation, things like that. I think, you know, so, I mean, when I look at this, I think, what I watched the hearing, my biggest concern was hearing the idea that historic districts are an impediment to progress.
Right.
And I think we should be looking at how do we connect with all the other historic districts in the state to make that clear that they're not, and, you know, looking at the ways in which Nantucket in particular, but also just thinking about the whole state. This isn't just Nantucket, okay, we're called out, but it's everybody.
Yes, it is.
Well, and I think that you brought up what's really important is like, we don't want the perception that we're an impediment to progress, but rather what it sounds like and what we do is like, we should be saying, no, we actually try to work with homeowners to come to solutions. And, you know, there needs to be some like understanding that it sounds like they're trying to use, you know, a hammer when you
That's
need like a
exactly what
scalpel,
everybody
right?
talks about this, that's what.
Yeah, and it's like, there needs to be some understanding, like, hey, we're already doing this, and there already are. I mean, I think many people know there's already many homes here,
Mhm.
and we work with them, and so there should be an understanding that, you know, you shouldn't just be broad brushstrokes, like, there needs to be a way to deal with communities that aren't dealing with it, but then with those that are being collaborative, that recognizing that and not penalizing those communities as well.
Mhm.
But I mean, you said we've reached out to the senator's office. Do we know anyone who, like, any good contacts with him?
No, I mean, I'm waiting for the proper, you know, the proper channel through town administration and.
I had a question. I know in the hearing, the question was raised as to with the section for the bill that pertains to Nantucket, like whether that's legal because it's affecting only one municipality. Is that something that town council is going to weigh in on?
I'm hoping that they, you know, town council weighs on everything on this. I mean, they need to.
Mhm.
And that was basically my request. So. Yeah.
Okay, but at this point, we as individuals and anyone who watches this meeting, we can write to the senator's office and,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely. Yep.
and we'll keep an eye on this
And
going
as-
forward. and-
hopefully, yes, as soon as I hear back from town council, I'll let both commissions know.
Fantastic. Oh, sorry, Hillary.
Oh, thanks. I just had a couple things to share. I put some links in the chat. There was a pretty horrific move from Florida's statewide government trying to make it easier to demolish homes in coastal flood zones. And it was defeated, but it was just it's much worse than anything we're talking about here. I'm not equivocating the two, but it just may be something to look at to see how the National Trust for Historic Preservation and various groups kind of stepped in to uphold the right of municipalities to control the local preservation law. And then I stepped away for a minute, but did we get an update on what the status of Stephen's initiative? You know, there was an agreement that the HDC was going to revisit and make some changes in some proposals, and I think there was a subcommittee. Is that still ongoing, or what happened with that?
They were meeting, they met for quite a while. I think they've been not meeting for a while, so.
Probably haven't met since, January.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I think part of it was, I know I was on that that subcommittee with Lucy Dillon and a couple other Andy Pacino folks and the OFC group, but I think that the other HDC issues kind of were taking precedent over that. That might be what happened.
I just think it's part of the reason, you know, we see the state stepping in when the local group is kind of not moving forward in the way the state wants to see them. I just think maybe that group could be, maybe we need like a sustainability and preservation group to look at some of these things, because it keeps falling. I mean, if we don't make progress, we're going to have a hammer instead of what we want, which is a solution crafted on island.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's been falling on the wayside. I think what Mary
Yeah.
hit the nail on the head is, there's been obviously, as you all are well aware, there's been other priorities that have been, gone through. This is interesting about, Florida, because I follow Florida's preservation stuff quite a bit. Thanks for sending this.
You're welcome. Yeah, it was pretty horrific when I read about it, and I just learned from looking right now that it died on the vine. So I was happy to see
Good.
that.
Especially how it has to do with St. Augustine. St. Augustine, if anybody doesn't realize, is like well, and there's a reason why Penn has their own place down in St. Augustine. Pisa, yeah. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Let's see if I can send those to everybody.
Oh, good, thank you.
Yes.
So is there anything else on this agenda item before we move on? Okay, great. Then next up is an update on the ongoing survey work and the discussion of the survey area for fiscal year 2024. So Holly.
Yes. So first off, in the packet, you all saw the letter, that we've been in, basically every year, every fiscal year. MHC sends out a letter to say, hey, we got federal funding again. It's another round. So of course we'll be doing that. But I really wanted to have a conversation with the commission about the location specifics on where we want to venture our survey. More importantly, I'm going to be requesting a little bit more funding as well. I think it's needed. There's a Nantucket factor. I'm feeling that with any of these federal fundings. People don't realize even at the state level that Nantucket is, you get a plan for if we have bad weather, the boats don't go, the consultants need to find a place to stay. Yeah, so explaining that to me more recently was interesting, but I need basically at the end of the day, gonna be continuing on with the next grant. And the list, I don't think I sent you all the last list, but I think what we need to put into the request is we're still focusing in the Brant Point area, Cliffside area, which is obviously mentioned as a high priority within the survey plan. There's a lot of high priorities, so that's I think kind of helpful in our efforts to move forward with the survey plan. But what MHC has said is 140 properties is equivalent to about a $40,000 project. I think it needs to actually be bumped up a little bit more for those 140 properties because of the Nantucket factor. But also we all remember with this project that PAL's working on now, the fiscal 22 project, and I will say this, the state's behind. We're in our fiscal years. No, because they're always the year before. So right now, the current project that PAL's working on is the fiscal 22 project. We're going through and getting we're in the procurement process of the fiscal 23 project. Now they're telling us, we got 24, even though town-wise, we're already ahead. So yeah, it makes it a little confusing, even though.
So town has approved it ahead.
Well, they're always in a higher, even though our fiscal years match. The names of them are the following year, if that makes sense. So they're already in fiscal 25. It's more confusing for me when I'm talking to procurement on that kind of stuff. But my whole point with the commission is one, let you know that they're putting this out there. Our application deadline is November 15th. So I'll be putting that in on behalf of the commission, behalf of the CLG. If there are additional areas, so we had areas laid out in this current project that PAL is working on, as you remember, and I know Mickey knows very, very well. The work that's going on Easton Street that put a kind of damper on attacking anything from basically the White Elephant down to Brant Point itself. we've kind of we put that to the side. So this next one, I'd like to include those back again. Hopefully by that point, when we get the consultant for this project, it will, if the, obviously if the state is so inclined to, give us another grant, that we will include them in those properties that we skipped, if you will. There's quite a few that were on pretty much all of Easton Street that we just, I think there's only like one or two that they actually did because it was on the other side of the street where none of the construction is going on.
Yeah, there's nothing really left, I wouldn't think, on Easton Street. I mean, you can take a picture of the house that
Yes,
existed there.
when we've had our internal meetings with PAL, and I know Mary, you've been involved, but Mickey, Angus, one of the topics was we have a lot of existing HDC surveys. Because remember, Easton Street actually is the bisecting part of the old historic district. So everything that's on Easton Street, on the water side is in the OHD all the way up to the Brant Point. Everything on the other side is just in the regular local district. So a lot of those were done in the 88-89 effort. And so now we're coming into the point of updating, whether that's, give you an example, the driftwood, the old gambrel from the 1880s that was called driftwood, that was up there near the lighthouse, was demolished in the 50s. And then the Sanford family built a very contemporary, in 53, I think it was, and they also called it the driftwood. That has an actual HDC survey on file from the 80s, and that building has been demolished, and now we have a new buildings that are being built in that location. So those are what we call, and Mary and Rita are familiar with that with the Form Bs, we call a continuation sheet. So those are the surveys that we want to acknowledge that there was a structure there. And the old survey included the 50s structure that's no longer there. And basically kind of codifying, if you will, the record for that piece of property, because we recognize its changes. We're going to find a lot of those, I think, in my opinion. And that's kind of one of the things that, I think is important. One thing that comes to my attention quite a bit is when people outside of Nantucket research Nantucket for regulatory review processes. So for instance, when a organization is going to be submitting through MHC for, say, Section 106 review, give you an example, we had Verizon. They were doing little co-locates around the island, about 12 different spots. They went through select board, blah, 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 but they're also what triggers Section 106. And the consultant provided information based on MACRIS. That's what you do, right? As a consultant, you go into MACRIS and you go, okay, what's my area of potential effect? Oh, there's nothing here. Why? Because there's no surveys there. But we know as locals that those structures are historic. So it took myself to provide that additional information. My point is even though those surveys are outdated, it might reflect incorrect information. I think part of our survey effort work needs to be cognizant of making sure that we are updating them, even if the structure is no longer there, or it's been a new one that's being updated. So that way we know the proper information is being provided through whatever regulatory review process it is. That's been something that's been kind of like, I've taken it really, I want the correct information to be provided. So, just basically at the end of the day, wanted you guys to know that we have the request. It's out there. I'll be submitting one, continuing on with the, area in Brant Point and Cliffside. And if there are specific properties at the commission within those areas laid out in our survey plan that you're wanting us to tackle, provide it to me. We'll put that in the list in the proposal if we get picked with RFQ, which I think we would. Yeah, I guess that would be my request.
Well, my question is it more, if we're doing, so I would consider those kind of updates to MACRIS. There's already something there, but it's not correct.
Yes.
So this is an update. Was it more important to do updates than it is to do surveys that haven't ever been done before?
I have both. Unfortunately, it's real, I think there's no picking and choosing because what helps really and truly is the fact that we had that survey plan. That was the biggest
Yeah.
hurdle. That was the best thing. I'm so glad this commission decided to move forward along with the pilot of doing the fish lots. I think that was important too. But the survey plan, how it's outlined, I'll tell you this, I have had other communities within the Commonwealth who are interested in the MHC planning grant, who saw our survey plan, and I've met with them on, oh my gosh, how did you guys do this? This is, so great. And they're not even the size, obviously, of Nantucket. So, I think this is the largest one that is around.
Well, it's nice to continue an area.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
fulfill an area.
Absolutely. And I can't, again, MPT and Wisconsin Trust with all the work that you do to help us move forward with the surveys, is instrumental. I'm so happy to see that,
They're in there.
yes, so I don't know if the commission knows, but Wisconsin Trust's effort to take, there's a dozen of them, I believe, of some of the histories that Marcia and Betsy did, and codifying them into the Form Bs. This commission reviewed, MHC reviewed, and MHC finally have blessed them and put them in Macris. So now there's updated surveys and I think new ones that were never there before, scattered throughout Wisconsin. So that's adding to our survey effort. I try to get the select board, HDC, to really realize that it is a public and private partnership, and that effort, even with the restrictions that you guys do, which those help too.
Well, we're trying.
Those get updated as well, and that's part of our survey effort. So, yeah, we're gonna continue moving forward on more and asking for more too.
Holly, can I ask how many properties in Brant Point, can you tell us how many have been done and how many are still left to be done in that zone?
Right. So with this, the current project that PAL's working on, the fiscal year 22 project, that was because we were finishing up the fish lots residual and then starting the Brant Point. We could only get about 40 within Brant Point, the first go around. And then subtract some of the ones that were on Easton Street that we took out of the equation because of the current construction. So, and I believe the survey plan outlines about 300 or so, 350 or so properties eligible based on our periodic significance, as well as an existing Macris surveys now, to be surveyed. That might even include, quite frankly, maybe some of the ones that were surveyed in the 80s that really shouldn't have been, like the ones that we've seen at the commission, for, being redone, that were built literally in 1980. So that's going to be something that I would like to, and that's something, this is going to be in addition to our work with the consultant, because the consultants are working on creating new surveys and updating existing, but only if the existing structure is there. So the ones that are gone, that's going to require the continuation sheet, and that's going to probably require staff to go through and update on our own outside of the survey work. I hope that answers questions on that. The current one that we are gonna have to we're still going through a procurement process on, that included, Mickey, a lot of the Harborview Way, a lot on Hulbert, more towards Jetty's Beach, down where your family actually has property, Jefferson, and of course there's a hodgepodge of infill in there that need to be vetted out. I think we're gonna find that some of these surveys aren't necessarily, we don't need them anymore. Again, they're gonna be ones that we find out, wait a minute, that structure is gone, or B, that structure is non-contributing, so we need to do a continuation sheet to get that away. that is probably gonna have to happen, because again, the basis for figuring out what we're gonna survey is, well, we're only surveying stuff that's contributing. And again, we wouldn't have been able to do it without that survey plan. So the survey plan is the basis for all this. So really and truly, yeah. I hope that answers. And then Mickey, it was to go up towards the Cliff Road area, which is the cliffside stuff. So
So there's still quite a bit to do in the Brant Point area.
yes, absolutely,
I'm
absolutely.
wondering how many years are we going to be spending on our survey budget dealing with Brant Point? You know, what are we going to conclude that in the near future, or are we kind of stuck there?
At least 2 or 3 more.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I wanted this conversation. Do we want to say, okay, we're just gonna finish the core part of Brant Point and then now just continue on like the cliffside area and downtown? It's hard, you've all read the survey plan. We know that basically the vast majority of downtown is listed as a high priority, so.
This is a good segue for what I've been trying to ask. Doing the water side of Easton Street and living here year round as you do and most of us do, just looking at where those places are at the moment in terms of how far along they are, will this request be available after they're done so that we can actually survey them?
Right, so that was the whole mindset of why the first project or the current project that we're in now, why we took them off the list, so to speak.
Right, I know. But I'm
Because
saying with this next
right.
request, do you think they'll be done by then? I mean, some of those are in various
Yeah,
stages of
it is.
completion.
That's like asking the $1 million question, Tom. I wish I
I
knew.
know,
because,
that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's a really good point. And to that one, maybe that is a pause for us to say, okay, we acknowledge the current construction that's going on, annotate in the survey plan, okay, we're gonna hold off on tackling that side of Easton Street until we know the construction is predominantly.
It goes to what Mickey's getting to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we could get, obviously this whole survey thing is a huge project. Very costly. Can we just get more money? I mean, what's the appetite of the town to just increase the budget for the survey work?
I've asked, and I think that's going to be a positive ask. I haven't seen the final request, but they know that I've asked. They know that we need more money on that. So
Can I just ask, what exactly is our interest in buildings which were demolished and no longer exist, and they put something new up? What is our interest in the new building?
Well, because that particular property has a survey right now. So right now, if you go on Macris, and it's basically, so it's incorrect information. And that was kind of where, one of the first meetings that we had with, in the beginning, way beginning, with PAL and our consultant, and MHC was, well, we recognize that there's quite a bit of surveys that they're not contributing structures. They were, literally, some of them I'm older than them. And B, to your point, they're gone. But
And we can't just stamp no longer exists on that?
There's this disconnect where if you go on to Macris, that some spots, and Mary, you've seen it, where sometimes they say N or D for demolished, but it's in this microscopic little spot. People are not focused on this. People, especially the subject matter experts that are utilizing this information for whatever purposes, they're not focused on that. They're focusing, oh, there's a survey, click, there it is. Oh, look, this is the structure that's there. And they're using that erroneously, no fault of their own, but because it's not updated. And yes, it would be nice to be able to say, somehow on the top cover, whatever, but again, it takes time. It takes somebody to go through methodically and go, okay, this structure's here, this structure's not. I mean, I'll even tell you this with the current project, when Pal was here in March, and walking through, and Mickey, you're well aware with some of these things that have come before the HDC recently. They've gone through and walked and said, wait a minute, this particular structure here that's not the same structure. That is completely new, let's move on to another property. So instead of being fixated on that particular piece of property, I've notated it that we need to go back and fix the record, if you will, for Macros, but not utilize it for the project, because again, our whole goal is to try to get the existing historic structures on survey that are not surveyed. And try to update the old history that's there, because even if you are familiar with probably your house around North Water Street, I bet you it's one of the old 89 surveys. It's not that detailed. Mary and Rita can attest to the amount of information that these new Form Bs require, which is fantastic because it dives into your social, cultural history of the property, who lived there, who built it, those type of things. So.
But I agree with George, it'd be really nice to just say unrecognizable or something.
Yeah.
Right. No, well, there needs to be, and again, I think because, unfortunately, we're being reactive to a deficient process, unfortunately, that we had, that we, as a town, didn't take the initiative to continually update our surveys. Literally 1989 was the last time before this commission and the HGC became a CLG and pursued this project. So, and we know when the survey plan is going to take a decade, I think maybe a little bit more, but that's why I keep on saying with our public and private partnerships, we can.
Yeah, but what kind of information would they need to have on this survey? I mean, some of those, I don't know anything, but some of those houses on Easton Street, maybe they used to be 3 bedrooms and now they're 10. Is that what people are looking at when they go to Macros? Is it some kind of a?
No. Macros is basically the old surveys that
Right.
be-
And now.
Right.
But I'm saying, if, like you mentioned, I mean, let's just say the National Grid or something wants to look up surveys and find out.
They
how
want to
many
know if that.
people are using the electricity on that particular property. I don't know.
No, it wouldn't be that kind of stuff. No.
Well, then why can't we don't have to do, I wouldn't think we wouldn't have to do much to describe.
Right,
the
it's
new
basically
house.
whatever, well, I don't even know if we want to go there. It's more or less just, again, updating that survey to say it's no longer there. It's
Okay.
It's
Okay.
making
structure
it
is no longer
so,
there,
yes, so
But
that,
something else is.
right, and it could be acknowledged that a new structure was built in 2023.
Okay.
Boom, done, end of
Boom.
story, but
So there's no reason to
there's
take a picture of that new structure or say.
I don't think so. Do you? I mean, that was kind of one of the things where this is a new territory for us.
So you need to
But we
document
need
the new
to-
structure for some
right.
reason.
And I have brought it up as we've gone through, like, hey, that we really need to start paying attention to how we, fix these older ones.
When we have limited resources, it just
Mhm.
seems unfortunate to spend a lot of time documenting things which are no longer
Right.
there, beyond saying
Right.
they're no longer there.
Right.
It's not contributing because it was
But
built
it's not an empty
5
lot.
years.
And that, again, that's why they've been put to the side and they move on to another property. Hey, Holly, we're gonna use this, we're gonna do this property instead.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. So we're gonna have some ones that, again, once the goal, we've seen the map, the goal is to have all these triangles, right? And all of those triangles represent a contributing resource on the island. And we're gonna have ones that are not gonna be, they're still gonna be there, but it's not there anymore. And how, we need to, I don't want incorrect information out there is pretty much what my point is. And for people to realize, oh, wait a minute, that there used to be a structure there, that's no longer there anymore. And again, this is something that I trying to facilitate some sort of process with the state on what they require.
Yeah.
But it's gonna take going through this process, to figure that out. And our consultants saying, hey, no, that's not right. So,
Well, because then these new structures can be changed again.
oh, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there can be multiple, once the
Yeah.
original structure, the contributing structure is gone,
correct.
then that just.
Correct. Yep, absolutely. But again, you're gonna, even though the old surveys have a photo of the structure that was there, say. you're gonna have a layman that's not gonna realize it, oh, it's different, oh, okay. But sometimes some people focus on, the date, oh, it's this date, no, it's not. So I just wanted you guys to be acknowledged, and realize that these areas, and Brant Point, Mickey, as you know, has a lot of these old surveys, but we're gonna finally get into areas that don't have any surveys whatsoever, like the core, like Main Street.
That was never surveyed?
Well, it was, but not through this state's process, because we do have surveys in our filing system. To that point, when we get a project going and say, we're gonna tackle this neighborhood, this area that we've outlined in our survey plan, once we have the consultant, then I actually with staff take all those old surveys and scan them and provide them to the consultant, because again, they can't access them from Macris because the town did it outside of the survey project and did it on their own accord. Was that a disservice? Yeah, in some instances it was. Is it helpful? There's some information there that is helpful, so, yeah.
I think, it's interesting about those surveys. And it's like, why didn't they survey Main Street? Why didn't they survey? Because everybody knew it was historic.
Right,
I think a lot of this stuff was like accepted. There was no question.
right,
That house was built in 1700, the house was built in 1800. Of course it's old, it matters.
yep,
And I think Pat's desire to survey some of these outlying things was to get them surveyed so that when they were old and historic, they would be, but many of them didn't make it that long.
No.
And now we look at them like, why was this surveyed?
Yep.
But
I mean, like the one that I know Mickey has seen with me with the HDC on Jefferson, it was built in 1980. And yet it has a survey from 89. What? Like, that's the mindset that I'm like scratching my head going, why? So in that particular case, and that's in Brant Point, that one should be noted as one, it's non-contributing based on our national period of significant update that was done, thanks to NPD. And two, it's been completely, actually, in this particular case, I think they're gonna demo it and then they're gonna rebuild similar to what was there, but with don't ask me, it's convoluted. But again, having it noted that it's non-contributing, and yes, there was an old survey on there and that's it. We're gonna be getting to that point where we're gonna be getting into these surveys that are just they're pointless.
Well, and also easier to just accomplish, I think. I mean, I hope that's what, not spend much time on and just get.
Correct,
Move on.
and I will tell you, so you're aware with these minute kind of convoluted issues that have arisen, they've been pushed to the side. The consultant's not working on that. That's a mental note for me. I'm taking notes on that going, I need to spend time and do a continuation sheet on that and just say done.
Continuation sheet.
Yes,
Which
yes.
shouldn't take as long, so.
Yeah.
Things get complicated sometimes, so like North Center Street, I don't know if you followed when the Brett Schneider house was condemned as being beyond saving, and they built an exact replica of it. So on the outside, even though there's nothing historic about that house,
Right.
it does actually kind of contribute to the look of the street.
Correct.
Because it's an exact replica
Correct.
of an historic house.
Correct. You're absolutely correct. So basically in that regard, if there is a survey on file, I would hope that could go, it's probably not in Macris if there is one. That could be updated to say that this is it's a reconstruction, of exactly that. It meets the character and setting of the historic district. It's a typical Nantucket style, but it's completely new. And that kind of thing is important. Kind of like how we have an infill on Main Street near the monument. People don't realize, they walk by it all the time. They think it's a historic structure, but it's not. It was built in 2004, 2005.
No.
I love that because it shows that you can build an infill in a historic district that's not contributing, but it contributes to the character and setting, but itself is not contributing.
I think one of everybody's favorite houses is Mickey's infill on Fair Street.
Oh,
With the
yeah.
pink door.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. So many people, yes. I don't know. Do you know that, Mickey?
Not
So many
really.
people, yeah, they'll take pictures of that and go, oh, how'd they get a pink door? I hear that quite a bit. So, yeah, so basically my whole, I wanted to bring this to Commission's attention, that we're gonna obviously continue to ask. I'm gonna be asking for more money. through both town meeting and through, the survey work, for the MHC, and, you know, if there are specific properties, within the Brant Point, Cliffside, downtown areas that we wanna focus on, for fiscal 25, please let me know.
Okay, but that's our next step. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on, we have National Alliance for Conservation Commissioners review. So we were all sent a SWOT analysis, which hopefully everyone has completed. But Holly, do you have any other updates?
You all know that they were here, for like basically 4 days, 3.5, 4 days. At the beginning of October, their focus was interviewing historic district commissioners. They also interviewed the planning director and town manager while they were here. And they are now working on all their recommendations, I think between now and December. And then in December, they're planning on having a public presentation of it. I believe it will probably be a joint meeting with the HDC and the select board. As you know, the select board approved their contract. They have a vested interest, obviously, that this goes well, as best as possible. I'm excited to see what their recommendations are gonna be. I think between now and then, they're also gonna be reaching out to anybody that was listed as a interviewee, if you will,
Okay.
sometime in December. Yeah. I have not seen this, so as far as the SWOT analysis goes, each commission had their own SWOT analysis. I have not seen the results of those yet, so. Be interested to see. I'll be interested to see, you know, what their overall recommendations are. I think we're gonna probably see, you know, maybe a recommendation to continue further. Yeah, so I'm excited, you know, you guys know that these are subject matter experts in the field of preservation law, commissioners, and it was nice to, you know, talk with them, have them here, see how we do things, how we're, some things are not necessarily the correct way. And emphasize the fact that yours truly is under the Secretary of Interior standards. I have the authority to indicate whether or not something is contributing or non-contributing based on my qualifications. And I said, wait, what?
Yeah,
That was nice to hear.
And that was the big interior focus.
We are in the United States.
I know,
To
people
forget
forget that,
sometimes,
right?
yeah.
Nantucket is like its own country, so.
Yeah, you know. So, but yeah, so I will keep the commission updated, see how that goes. Again, I was, leading up to their visit in this month was, every couple of weeks, I'd have a Zoom meeting with the team from MAPC. But I don't have anything scheduled between now and the end of to December. So I gotta reach out to them and say, hey,
sounds good.
let me know.
I know they didn't wind up speaking with Angus while they were here in person, do you know, but you were saying they're going to be doing additional.
They should be,
Okay,
yes,
great.
yes. I think their focus literally was staff and HGC commissioners while they're here. They wanted to reach out before they got here, but that just didn't work out. And remember, if for those who are not familiar with NAPC members, they're working in the field, whatever they're in. So you've got attorneys, you've got commissioners, you've got town council, town leaders, city council, city leaders. And you know, the fact that NAPC has been around, I think 40 years, I think this is our 40th. Yeah. Doing exactly this, mentoring, but they took this on above and beyond of any other projects that they've done for other commissions, or towns. So they're actually really interested in feedback. So once we do get our report from them with their recommendations and all that stuff, and they present and we digest it, I think it would be helpful for both commissions and maybe even town leadership to just, to give them a, you know, a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Input, I guess, or of evaluation of how it went. Because I think they were interested in, the fact that we asked them to do something a little bit outside their box that they normally do for commissions. So, yeah, and they're, be good.
Great, yeah, well, we'll look forward to December. So is there any other business?
The only thing I was gonna say was the goal stuff.
Oh, yes.
Do you have the one from last month?
I think I do.
Cause that way she can just project it. I think the only thing was, there's not like a bunch of major changes, but I think I just want to look at a couple of the dates and see what you guys thought. So we'll be relatively quick.
Well, we got plenty of time.
Was it in the packet for last month?
I don't remember seeing it.
I think it would have been on the email. It wasn't on the- It might have been in the. Yeah.
Yep, there it is. Sorry,
Yeah.
hold on.
There we go.
Let me fix this so everybody can see.
Oh, Tom, did you have a question?
On other stuff, if those people who live here and for those who don't live here, if you could drive down the Nantucket Road and you go into the Nantucket Beach parking lot, take a look at the windmill that we were never supposed to be able to see.
Yes, that's.
It looms.
I've been hearing a lot of feedback, Tom, like a lot of people have been saying they can see it early in the morning on a clear day. Like I've definitely been hearing a lot of chatter from people that it's super visible.
It's very visible.
To
It's going to be even more visible now that they've got all three veins on it.
But now we've got the gold.
Yeah, sorry. No, good point, though. I put that in the notes, Tom. It is, people should go look.
Yeah.
So I had Holly, we had the key date for September was you had to be sending comments on the work by the 15th. So I'm assuming you did that. So that would be complete, right?
Sorry, I'm trying
Oh, no, I think one was the old one was the new one.
Oh, where'd it go? Sorry, guys. I lost it.
Here,
All right, so is this the new one?
yes, this is
Okay.
the one. So I had,
This one?
yeah, did you sent comments, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's fine. I guess the only thing I would want to know is what our next like milestone is for that, but it might be what you're saying is doing that application that's due the 15th, if that's.
Yeah, I
correct.
mean, we're getting into a point where we've got fiscal 22 project going. We're gonna be starting fiscal 23 project, and then we're gonna be applying for fiscal 24. Sorry. See, I was already thinking of 25, but it's 24.
Okay. So I'll just update that. I have something, so I think you guys talked about this last month, but I had to leave early. There were technical issues with me trying to do the application and my computer shut down. And so I like circulated some drafts and I was waiting for comments. I never got the comments back. No, I never got all the comments back. I never got like all the information back. So I apologize, but it was really like technical issues all around. So my guess is we'll probably just have to apply for the next round, and obviously I'll be able to have more time because I was looking for comments I didn't get. I was waiting for feedback from CPC where I had questions. I didn't hear back on that as well. So it was again a holding pattern because I was waiting for stuff. So more to come there.
And as far as the other CPC projects, those were that we, as part of town / historical commission involvement with PIN, those were submitted, and I'm waiting to hear back from CPC on when we're gonna be setting up their basically interviewee, if you will, about the project. So when they reach out to me, I'll probably be having Clary Larkin from PIN with me in those Zoom meetings. So my understanding is CPC is starting that for next town meeting. Vetting process, if you will. So,
Alright, the date for that. I think the cobblestones, I don't think we have anything new there unless.
no, but on that point, just so you're aware, and this is around the corner from you, there used to be, long time ago, cobblestones on Step Lane. And there's some owners that are wanting to put cobblestones back. When they,
Underneath the asphalt.
no, you know what, so basically, talking with the consultants, for the sewer force main project. They only found like a handful, they didn't find a lot. Which leads to believe that when they paved, cause it used to be, back in the, I've got photographs I found from NHA, thank you NHA. From basically looking up. And up to the crest, that was cobbled, and then like in the turn of the century and then into the 20s, it was paved up like from the crest to Center Street. So it wasn't all cobbled.
Were there ever steps?
So
Actually,
yeah, it's
steps.
a really good question. I don't know, probably way
I
before.
think it was at some point it was,
Yeah.
steps where it was just like walking.
So my point on that is, with the project, it's supposed to go back as asphalt with the flanking bricks. As it was before the sewer force main project opened it up. However, there's neighbors on Step Lane that have asked town administration if they could put cobble back, and they're, well, it's not part of the bid, that's not part of the project, so, but. Winter Street
And yet Winter
was,
Street, yeah.
Winter Street was, and, you know, my conversations with Ken, and unfortunately, can't really speak to Ken, much for town stuff anymore, but, that we could technically apply for CPC funding for it. I took that off the list of things to work on. Again, those were added projects. There's like 5 of them onto the sewer force main project. And the sewer force main project, as we all know, it goes from C Street all the way out to the sewer beds. Very prescriptive process, and we know goes through the core. So, making sure that that part is taken care of first, but when they do get to Winter Street, they're going to be, putting those cobbles back, so. Pretty cool.
The next line item, I know as part of whatever PIN was doing, they're gonna incorporate the MPS grants into whatever they're doing to try and do the matching, so that's kind of ongoing. We briefly talked about setting up a meeting for the CLG. We did set up the meeting to complete the requirements, but like we just talked about, we want to do some follow-up sessions, including the demolition session. So I think we should try to schedule it, like,
In the springtime.
yeah, schedule it in the springtime, but try and like over the next couple months, figure out a good date.
Yep.
Ongoing historic tax credit applications, I don't think we've seen any lately, but it's just ongoing. I would update, I know we talked about doing building with Nantucket in mind. I would just push it out to December, but I do think it's worthy to do if we can.
And on that note, if there, I think the whole topic of building with Nantucket in mind is kind of twofold.
Mhm.
One, this commission is talking about taking components of it and getting the information out there.
Mhm.
Things that we see, Mickey can attest to, we see quite a bit. Dormers not right on the ridge, pulled back 3 feet off. I mean, just the typical requirements that, additive massing. 1 story and 2 story, not this, these, a monolithic cubes that sometimes we're seeing. So, just those key components that are building with Nantucket in mind, and this commission could assist getting that information out there. Our preservation and planning page might be a good avenue to dive into on that. On that note, I recently was able to have town administration staff that handles that kind of stuff, update the CPC and PT PIN internal house project that you guys did years ago, that the link, it was on the HDC page, nobody could find it, it got buried, and then it disappeared. So I had them, can you put it to the bottom of the preservation planning page under our survey work, but also do a blurb about what exactly it is. That way people realize it's a resource for historic information of structures. There's that, and then there's a direct link to the Library of Congress for historic American building surveys, which was on the website, but it got buried again, so now it's in there. I want that, the preservation planning page to be that central location for people to go to, that they can, utilize.
So I guess for this, the next step is if we actually wanted to do the video, do we know who we'd reach out to? And do we have the couple of scenarios? Maybe we should just think about it and bring it to the next meeting of like, what would be a couple common scenarios that we want to show like correct and incorrect? Not necessarily like good or bad, but more like it would be better if you did this than that.
Yeah, to use the language of, appropriate versus
Yeah.
inappropriate.
Yeah. So maybe if we just want to think about that for the next meeting, I don't know. I think we had talked about if the video might be like NATV.
Oh, NCTV, yeah, I just made a note to see if maybe that's something that we could work with them on.
Yeah,
Would there be budget?
I think there was money somewhere already. Somebody did a CPC. There's money. It's a little bit, but I think there's money still out there.
Okay.
But I don't think it would be a ton of money.
Yeah,
But let's just think about that. I think it would be good just to, like you're saying, then we can, if we get something, get a little momentum, we can put it on the webpage and.
right,
So we could add that to
start
it.
rolling.
and then I know a lot of questions or a lot of discussion over the past few years is about updating building rules and codifying, and that is definitely still there in the cosmos of wanting to do.
Yeah.
But I also think that's something that, and I almost did, but I decided, no, we got a lot going on. Is asking for additional CPC funds for
Yeah.
that, to apply, so that way we can get a consultant to assist the
Well,
district on doing that.
If we get started, maybe that's something we could think about for doing for next year's.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, and that would be something that I would want both commissions to
Yeah.
do jointly, because it is the HDC's bailiwick, but we also understand that this commission assists
Yeah,
in the education component, and I think if that's the step that this commission can do on it, is educate the public.
I agree. Education, I'm our training coordinator, but there hasn't been anything out there lately. They've been really quiet because we did have a bunch of trainings like earlier in the year, but they've been quiet now. And George, by the way, because I think you joined, if you want, I can forward you, they did do a couple of trainings in like the first half of the year. And so I have a bunch of presentations, so I'm happy to share.
And those are videos or whatever.
Yeah, they're presentations, so PowerPoint, but also they did record the session, so I'm happy, I'll share them with you just so you have a copy.
Okay.
And Rita, I think you were here, but if not, I'll share it just to both of you because I shared it with the other commissioners, but I'm happy to share it with you guys.
Oh, yeah, MHC stuff,
Yeah.
yeah.
There is next Wednesday at 1:30. There's a Massachusetts deconstruction work group.
Oh, is it?
DEP,
Yeah.
yes.
Because I keep looking at, I seem to see those, they pop up all the time and I can't remember, wait, is this the same one or is it a new one or is it?
So it's 10:25.
Wednesday, 1:30, where is it?
It's on Zoom, so I can send a link to Hot, or you probably have it.
Yeah, the
It's
DEP
circulated
one, yeah, I'll send it to everybody.
Deconstruction workshop.
As a matter of fact, Vince is gonna go to that, he put that on his calendar,
Oh,
so,
good.
yeah. Yep,
Okay, so
So that's a new one.
yes, I'm updating this sheet. I'll send to you guys after the meeting, so you have the updates.
Yeah.
Did we ever hear back from the state? No.
no, I need to touch base with them, I don't know, so basically at the end of the day, not only that, but, I sent a letter of recommendation to David Robinson, who's the ocean state archaeologist.
Okay, I'll put ocean.
I guess that's, he's not the land, he's the state, but he works well with the SHPO. Anyway, and it was specific after the whole shipwreck thing. It was a grant through CZM, I believe, no, it was with CZM to NOAA, I think. I can't remember, it's been a while, sorry. But anyway, it was to help map more of our shipwrecks, as well as how we all know that the island and the sediment have always moved, and we've had the ebb and flow of erosion and accretion, right, around the entire island. And it was supposed to use that information, but also more towards documentation and where, used for, that's why CZM was also interested. Anyways, I was supposed to be notified in June, and I haven't heard, so I need to touch base. I know if they got it or not, I don't know. But NOAA, obviously, they probably have a lot of other applications that were submitted.
The next one, Mary, this might be of interest. We had been talking about, and I just thought of it because you mentioned it earlier, doing a historic structure disaster resiliency workshop. I had talked about it with the NHA, but obviously would love to bring NPT into it. So I might try and reach out to some of the people. We had been talking with Niles and some other people are doing some work. So I'm gonna try and target, I had 10:31, I'll change it to 12 and see if we can try and get something by the end of the year.
So basically, this was a offshoot from when NHA was working with UPenn this summer in their conservation component. You might wanna, I mean, I know disaster resiliency, but maybe even put in the conservation of materials, because that was their main focus. But it was really interesting to hear their final conclusions. And this is just the start. I think UPenn is really gonna be taking that forward, but more for the NHA's properties. They looked at everything from the oldest house to Greater Light, and looking at, from a conservation perspective in their environment and the building and materials and all that very technical stuff. But we had a conversation afterwards, and really wanting the town kind of involved, but obviously through this commission. Yeah, I'm really interested to see where that goes. Because, at the end of the day, when I hear about disaster and resiliency, when it comes to our historic environment, I think of Penn and all the work that UF did with us. And so I would want to make sure that there is a little bit of a separation here. Even though I think us and NHA want to work with everybody together.
Gotcha.
Jointly.
Wow.
Could you raise this,
I'll
could you
follow up
raise
on
the
that.
screen up so we can see a little bit more of what's?
Oh, yep, sorry.
And then the last one is the ongoing collaboration. And Tom, I'm gonna send, I have been updating this live, so I'm gonna send it to you guys after the meeting, just so you have it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. I didn't have anything else.
Okay, great. Is there anything else from anybody?
I move we adjourn.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. On the motion, Abby,
Aye.
Clement,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Tom, Mickey,
Aye,
and I'm an aye as well. So thanks, everybody.
Okay,
thank you.
over and out.
Bye, bye.
Bye, thanks.
Have a good weekend.